Good morning, members of the Eastern Annual Conference. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of what Moodle Cloud can do and how it will enable us to have the essence of our annual conference that this year in a safe fashion. What we would do is when everybody registers, they'd have to register with a email, and then to their email address, we would send them a link to this site, and with that, they would receive a ID and password. In this case, my ID would be dbattle, and then let me put this dud password in here that allows me to access this as a guest. Now, this would be how as you see, I'm test student, and this would this would be how I, as a delegate, would access this. On this site, you'll see off to the left a calendar, and the calendar we would be able to put when different events are occurring in July. And right now I don't have any, but in July we'd put the different events and times and that sort of thing, and so they would be able to come here and look stuff up. But most of the time, they would just simply log in to the Eastern Annual Conference. Now, there are announcements. The announcements will also show up on the previous page where they can see the announcements. But here, the announcements that we send to them will be here. Now, the announcements will be also emailed to their email address. So they'll get an email with the announcements, plus they'll be able to go here and review any announcements that we put up. After that, we will have a place where we could put annual conference reports and general conference reports. And the way that would work, they'd click on that and they could download all the reports. There can be a whole list of reports here. They could download the whole folder of reports and have it on their own computer, or they could access each one at a time, and they could either open it or save the individual file at their own discretion. So in this case here, we open up a demonstration file, and right there they would have it in Word to be able to read and look over and evaluate. Once they're finished, they just close it out, and you come right back to this page, and you would do the same thing for the general conference reports. I recommend that the public events like the worship service and that sort of thing be conducted outside of the Moodle Cloud. In this case, this is a free conference call worship setup. Now, we could do it with Zoom, and I would recommend, I think the Turbyville Church has been doing this, and the Turbyville Church, I think, could be persuaded to lead a couple of worship services on Zoom. The rest of the denomination could access it directly without coming into Moodle, but the delegates could access the worship service through Moodle. And all they would do in this case is they would click on the free conference call worship, or if they wanted, they could follow the instructions that are here that are pretty much standard instructions. So they'd click here, a window would open up, and what would come here is they would enter their name and their email address, and they would join the session. This is pretty much standard, depending upon whether it's Zoom or whether it is this free conference call. It will be the same. I click that window. I'm still here within the Eastern Annual Conference setup. Now then we could have a video presentation from the president. As you know here, this is where I'll be placing this particular video. Now the last thing is, how do we conduct our sessions? We would conduct our sessions within Moodle, so only people who are delegates will be able to access these sessions. Nobody who's not a delegate would be able to access it. Then what you would simply do is you'd click here, and this brings you to the big blue button. And the big blue button, only if a moderator is there can you enter into this session. Now this can be recorded so that we can go back and look at any issues. But all the person does here is they just simply join the session. Now I've asked my son to join us to help on the other side, so he's pretending to be me. Not necessarily a good thing. What you would do is you would join with microphone. Of course, you have to give it permission. Check for the echo test. Boom, 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 boom. Yes. Now, one thing that he's going to do is mute me. Yeah, thank you, thank you. He just muted me. And you can see that I'm muted over here. Now he's also muted. This is just to prevent any feedback because we're not too far from each other. But let's say something's going on and you have a question. You say, I have a you could simply type in this little box down here at the bottom, I have a question. Now you could type the question in or whatever, but you have the question, and that would let the moderator know, or not necessarily the moderator, but who's ever running the system know that you have a question, and then on a cue they can open it up and let you speak. Because when you have a lot of people who are uh, on these sessions, if they all have their mics on, you get all sorts of feedback and stuff. So it's very important to have like a second party who is monitoring these things and can uh, uh, mute and unmute individuals. Other things that we can do here is we could have some preset notes and share them here. They could be placed there. There's several ways that we can do this. Now we're going to, you say, well, how are we going to take a vote? Well, before we get to there, there's a whole host of things here you see that we can do. Webcam, breakout rooms. We can have different people go to different breakout rooms to discuss various things. Sharing screen. I can, put documents up to while I'm discussing them, and they'll be able to see the documents and all that at this time, kind of like this. This is actually a document that you see in front of you. But let us go and let's do a vote. So let's see if my son follows my instructions here. Would you go and set up a vote for us? Or set up a question for us to vote upon. So he puts it up. He can type it straight in. It says right here, period. It is true. Uh-huh. So he's trying to be a little funny here. He's trying to make one of these political votes where if you vote false for it, it's true and that sort of. Then it comes up, and so you could actually have yes, no. In his case, he's trying to trap me with a true and false statement. So if I vote false, it is true, and so you have to read very carefully with these people. And so you have to go, well, false is true, but you really want to say true because if it's true, he's not the best, but I know that he's the best. And so then after the vote's been shared, then he posts, once everybody's voted, then he posts, and this will give us the count of everybody who voted, those who voted true, the number who voted true, the number who voted false. And so that way we'll get a full vote for each of these events. I'm trying to see. I've just noticed something here that, let me shrink this up a little bit so that we can make sure. There you see down here at the bottom where the votes are taken. But anyways, the votes would be taken here in this way, and only delegates would be able to vote. Only those who have the email, have the access. If a delegate gives their email access and stuff to somebody else, that person can vote for them, vote as them. That'll be the one thing. The delegates need to understand that their passcode and password, or their ID and password is them, and that gives them the right to vote here. But we could cover the basic items of business, things like the budget. We could cover the 32 questions. We could cover various other items of business that are just basically standard business items for the annual conference this way. So once we're finished talking about it, then I would just basically exit and log out. And we'd come here, and we just come back, and it brings you back to the Eastern Annual Conference. And so, the business portion could be done in this area, and then we could have various group activities through Zoom, worship that are public for the delegates, they can access it through this, or if they desire, they could access it directly. And so this would help us to expedite a annual conference, not a full annual conference with everything, but at least get the minimum stuff that we need done for this year. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you, and good day.